Here's the HP Stream 13, an inexpensive laptop computer from around 2015 or 2016. This particular one was bought brand new in April 2016 for less than 250 euros. On the left side it has a Kensington lock slot, HDMI port, USB 3.0 port, headphone jack which also supports headphones with a built-in microphone like what smartphones used to come with back when they had headphone jacks, remember that? Micro SD card slot and power LED indicator. On the right we have two USB 2.0 ports and the power jack. On the back there's just a hinge. Nothing of interest in the front either. On the bottom we can see the two stereo speakers and we can read the exact model number 13-C100NL. I really like the blue color of this computer. It goes great with my Apple iPod Nano. It's all plastic, but the build quality is acceptable. It's actually sturdier than my more powerful HP 15 laptop. The HP logo is shiny and looks black, but it's actually a darker shade of blue. Here's some really harsh light to take a better look at the color of this computer, including the logo. But if we open it up, you can see that this computer is pink inside. It didn't come like this from the factory. A while back I had to replace the keyboard because juice was spilled on it and the keys started malfunctioning, even though I took apart the computer and let it dry for a week. However, the keyboard is fused to this part of the case, so I had to buy this part with the keyboard included, and I could only find it in pink. So now this computer has a unique blue and pink look, which I'm not really into. I liked it better when it was all blue, but it certainly won't keep me from using this PC. As the name HP Stream 13 suggests, this has a 13-inch screen with the unfortunate 1366 by 768 resolution. It's slightly less painful than using a 15-inch screen of this resolution, but it's still a basic TFT LCD panel with not so good color reproduction and video angles. At least it's anti-glare. Here we have the power button with its LED indicator. It blinks when it's in sleep mode, just like the indicator on the left side. The keyboard has no backlight, but it's okay to type on. In fact, I've used it to type part of the script for this video. Like most chiclet keyboards, there's not much key travel and feedback, similar to Apple chiclet keyboards, including the ones before the butterfly key mechanism. The chiclet keyboard in my modern ThinkPad is much nicer to type on. The trackpad is also okay, but it's not very precise. It often misinterprets your clicks. I actually found tapping to click to be more reliable on this computer sometimes. The speakers are a bit tinny, but they're loud enough and they don't sound that bad. The webcam quality is quite bad, but it'll be good enough for video calls and stuff like that. And the microphone quality is actually very good. It even records in stereo. This computer is also pretty thin. Not as thin as a MacBook Air, but more than thin enough. However, it is a bit heavy. It weighs almost as much as my T440S, but carrying it around is no problem at all. As the model name Stream suggests, the main purpose for a cheap computer like this is for online content, like streaming music and videos, as long as you stick with 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi, because there's no Ethernet port and it doesn't support 5 GHz Wi-Fi access points. And by stream, of course, they mean consume streaming content, not hosting a live stream. The hardware was poor even for 2015 standards. It has a 1.6 GHz dual-core Intel Celeron processor without hyperthreading, 2 GB of DDR3 memory, and a 32 GB embedded multimedia card drive. This low-end computer is basically like the netbooks of around 10 years ago, except it's bigger. It originally came with Windows 10 Home 64-bit. With the original software it came with, this computer was really slow and was constantly running out of space, even though there wasn't much bloatware. The worst bottleneck by far is the storage. 32 GB are just not enough for that behemoth known as Windows 10. 64 GB, sure, but not any less. I did a clean installation of Windows 10, and there were about 10 GB free, which would be enough. But after installing drivers and Windows updates, compacting the system files, and running disk cleanup, including the Windows Update cleanup, there were only about 3 GB of free space. I'm not sure how that happens, but it just does. I checked with Wiz3 and the biggest folder was the Windows folder. At least from Windows I was able to update the BIOS and fix the vulnerabilities against Meltdown and Spectre. Having this little free space made this computer run quite slow. The eMMC is faster than a mechanical hard drive and has many of the advantages of a solid-state drive, but it's not as fast as an SSD. The Intel Celeron on here is also less powerful than the Intel Core 2 Duo that's in my ThinkPad T60, a computer 10 years older than this HP Stream. The good thing about this underpowered computer is the energy efficiency. When this computer was new, it had phenomenal battery life. It would last for about 7 to 8 hours. 5 years later, it lasts just under 5 hours playing a YouTube video with the brightness at 50%. So it's still decent. The main problem is that none of these components can be upgraded. So with that in mind, I had to remove Windows 10 and install a lighter operating system. I first tried Windows 7, but the installer crashes on startup even when legacy mode is enabled. If I use a modified installer based on Windows 8, it does install, but the installed OS crashes the same way, because Windows 7 does not support this eMMC drive. And so we take a look at Linux. Linux is not always faster than Windows, but there are some modern Linux distributions that use fewer system resources than Windows 10, especially less space. I'm more familiar with Debian-based distributions like Ubuntu, so on this computer I installed Linux Mint 20 with the XFCE desktop, because it's lightweight compared to regular Ubuntu or Mint with Cinnamon, and Mint is the only Linux distro I know of that can have automatic updates for everything, not just security updates. Regular computer users will never accept the update prompts, much less enter the password and restart when prompted, because yes, Linux sometimes asks you to restart for updates too. And now I'll show you how fast it starts up. This PC was shared with my family over the years, but recently they decided to give it back to me because I gave them other computers. So here's the Linux Mint XFCE desktop. I customized it a little bit, but not very much. If we open the update manager here, we can see the automatic update setting. Apply updates automatically. And also this automatic remove obsolete kernels and dependencies is useful. There's only 4.7 gigabytes of free space, but that's after installing a bunch of programs and including a Windows XP virtual machine, which is 1 gigabyte, and the time shift system file backup feature, which takes about 10 gigabytes. I set it up using only 2 daily snapshots, which I think is enough. I haven't had a chance to restore a snapshot yet, but since they make such a big deal about this feature, I hope it's gonna work. Linux Mint 20.1 is based on Ubuntu 20.04 LTS, so it should be pretty stable. This computer ran perfectly from the time I installed Mint on it in December 2020 until now, March 2021. There was also an upgrade from Mint 20 to 20.1, which wasn't automatic, but it worked flawlessly. Now that I have this computer for myself, I decided to test it a little more, just to see what it's like to use a cheapo computer like this these days. The answer is not a living hell. It starts up quite quickly, and all web browsing tasks have worked exceptionally well. It does struggle sometimes, especially when loading some websites and apps, but it's bearable. You can't have much stuff open at the same time, but a couple of web browser tabs and a document will work okay. Depending on your tastes, you can also have some fun with this computer with old video games. In my opinion, many older games are way more fun than modern ones that take up more space than the whole drive of this PC. This computer should run even better with Chrome OS using a solution like Cloud Ready, which I did a video about. I haven't tried it on this HP Stream, but I'm sure it would work fine since it's among the supported models. And if you have a fast enough network connection, this PC would be fantastic as a thin client. Connect to a more powerful computer using remote desktop software and you're in business. Overall, this laptop is a bit like one of those modern retro-looking record players. Cheap, mediocre, and you definitely should not buy it. But if you end up with one anyway, it's not dangerous to use if it's set up correctly. You'd want a better screen for streaming online videos, but for the price, it is what it is. With the x86 architecture, this PC can run many applications that won't run on a smartphone, tablet, or other computer with ARM processor. And like ARM-based devices, this HP Stream is completely silent because it has no moving parts, not even a cooling fan. So despite all these shortcomings, this computer still has some use. Most of the hate for cheap computers like this is justified, but they are cheap computers after all, so you can't expect too much from them. Although I wish they were a little bit expandable like the netbooks of a few years ago. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you for watching.